Welcome to Beyond Food and Wine, a Cordon Bleu podcast. In this podcast, we get some real insight into the food and hospitality industry from a variety of renowned chefs, industry experts, and Cordon Bleu alumni. Join us as we hear the fascinating stories and unique experiences behind some of the best-known names in the industry. Welcome. I'm delighted to be joined by Chef Anahita Dhondy.
Thank you.
Welcome back to London. How's your trip been so far?
London's been an exciting city. It's always been very close to my heart because I studied here. So I actually enjoy every bit of London, especially walking around. It's been the most amazing time just to walk around, look at all the food, look at all the new restaurants that have opened up. So it's always been exciting and very busy.
Excellent. Well, we're really pleased to have you back at Cordon Bleu London.
Thank you.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
So for those who aren't aware, can you tell us a little bit about your role and what you do?
Right. My name is Anahita Dhondy. I am a chef and an author. I live in Delhi, which is Delhi NCR actually, in India. I started my culinary journey very early on, actually, in my mom's kitchen when I was about 10, and always been eating, drinking, thinking about food all the time. So it happened at a very young age, and followed my passion, went to college, came here to Cordon Bleu London, which is, again, very close to my heart. And I had the best experience working, training, and learning here. Right after that, I opened a restaurant called SodaBottleOpenerWala. That was in 2013, and expanded the chain. It's a Bombay Rani cafe. It was all over the country, and while that happened, I also worked on two different projects. One is my cookbook, The Parsi Kitchen, which came out in 2021. And I also work very closely with the UN's SDG 2 Advocacy Hub, which is the Chef's Manifesto. So that's just a little bit about me and what I've done. But now I am a consultant. I help set up restaurants. I do a lot of R&D in the food space. And I'm writing my second book.
Amazing. That's wonderful. Thank you. And can you just tell me why did you come to Cordon Bleu London specifically?
So I think Cordon Bleu as a concept, as an institution actually, was something that I always knew. I think I was about 15 or 16, and that's when I told my dad that's where I want to go and study. And let me tell you, we did check out the other branches as well. We went to Dusit Thani in Thailand, of course the one in Paris, the one in London. I am not sure if Australia was there then, but I think it had just set up. And the reason I chose London was, I think it was close to home, I had family here, so I felt safe. And the language. So I think it was very easy for me to communicate with my teachers, with my chefs, with my peers, which I was a bit worried about if I went to Paris. So that's why London was my first option, and I'm so happy that I got in and I studied here.
Yeah, well, we're happy as well.
Thank you.
So your former restaurant and your beautiful book, The Parsi Kitchen, focus on celebrating Parsi cuisine. And how important is it to you to showcase Parsi cuisine?
So I think there's a chapter in my cookbook which is called Pork Vindaloo. So if you guys check my book out, it's a chapter which talks about my time at Cordon Bleu. It talks about this one class that I had in here, and I remember we'd created a dish. I went back to my apartment and I looked at that dish and I said, I got all the best marks on that dish, but I wasn't satisfied. There was something that I felt like which was a miss, and I wasn't sure what it was. I couldn't pinpoint to what it was. And when I went back to my apartment, I told my flatmate then, and I said, you know what, don't eat this, let me make something for you. And I remember making pork vindaloo, which was from Mum's masalas, which she had left me. And I think I had tears at that point of time, because I realized that I know I'm here studying French cuisine and pastry. The techniques that I'm learning here it's going to help me throughout my career. But the flavors that I've inherited, those are the flavors that I want to work on. That's when I realized that I want to do something. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do something with Parsi food, but I knew I wanted to do something with Indian food, because for me, it's one of the greatest cuisines in the world, and I wanted to represent that. And when I went back to India and met Mr. A.D. Singh, who's the owner of the Olive Group, he was the one who wanted to do this cafe, and we met together and we created that cafe. And for me, it was all about telling the world about the story of the Parsi community, getting those recipes from my mom's kitchen, from aunts and family members, and getting more and more people to know about Parsi food. So for me, it's really important that wherever I go, I spread the name of Parsi food and cuisine in the community. And I do that through my cookbook, through pop-ups, through my social media, and I hope to get more and more people excited about Parsi food.
Amazing. Well, the book is, as it says, also a memoir, not just a recipe book. How connected to a person's culture would you say the food is?
I think food is something that is, it just connects us all. And especially in a Parsi household and even in an Indian household, and I'm sure all over the world, it's the dinner table where everyone comes together. Our home's always been an open home. We've always had friends and family and people coming in. It's always been busy churning out food. And I think we've been blessed to, try and eat and experience different cuisines. But for me, when I wrote my book, and the first time I put the script together, I remember tearing it off because I wasn't happy with just a cookbook. It was boring to just have recipes. So I decided that I wanted a book to be, it has to be a story book. It has to be a story of my community, of my family. So each recipe starts with the name of the dish, goes into a story, and then you have the recipe which comes by at the end of it. So it was really important that if you open that book, you get an insight into the Parsi community and the culture.
Fantastic. Yeah. So obviously in the UK, Indian cuisine as a whole, as an umbrella term, is very popular, and whether that's more or less authentic, it depends. But how important would you say it is to highlight the kind of subsections of a broader cuisine, the lesser known cuisines?
So I think what's happening currently with Indian food is that the whole world is looking at India now, because they're realizing the goodness of Indian food, the spices, and it's not very easy to always get the balance right. And I think the world is now realizing that. There are, recipes which follow the Ayurvedic way of cooking, lots of plant-based recipes, even vegan. Like there are recipes that you don't have to make vegan or use mock meat, but they're naturally vegan. So I think the whole world is kind of looking at India, and India is also looking inwards to kind of find those old, lost, forgotten recipes and bring them back on the table. So there's a lot happening in India and outside to show better representation of Indian food. But there is, like all over the country, you'll find people showcasing more and more regional Indian cuisine and dishes. And I have seen that happening in London as well and in the UK. So I know there is better representation of Indian food than it was when I was in college here. And I know that's changing, which is fantastic. So I know the world's looking at India, and Indian food is the best. So
yeah, I agree. Absolutely. I can't argue with that there.
Yeah.
So you're part of the Chef's Manifesto, which is a wonderful organisation and working to achieve the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Mm-hmm. Can you explain a little bit more about what that is and how you got into that area?
Okay. So while I was working at SodaBottleOpenerWala, we made sure that we're not using anything which was imported. We were always using local ingredients. And, we wanted to start talking about that because we weren't doing that as a restaurant and a brand. So when I started showcasing that on social media and I started looking more inwards into my own cuisine and what's growing around me, I realized that there were lots of ingredients and grains like millets that were long forgotten. So I started doing my research. This was in about 2015. I started doing a lot of research on millets and started putting millets on the menu when people were just not okay with trying millets. And let me tell you a little bit about millets. So millets is an ancient grain from India, and even in Africa, you find a lot of sorghum. People weren't eating it because they thought it was cattle feed or bird feed. They didn't realize it was actually indigenous grains that humans used to eat. And they're gluten-free, they're high in protein, they've got lots of vitamins and minerals, and they're very good for your gut. And what happened is, because of rice and wheat coming into mainstream cooking, millets kind of got lost. So I started putting it on menus, I started talking about it on social media, I started researching it on my own, learning about it, and it got picked up online, literally, by the SDG2 Advocacy Hub, by the director, Paul Newnham. He saw that and he was like, okay, this person in India is doing some work with grains that use less water. World Water Day is coming up right now. There's Zero Waste Month going on right now. So all of these things, I started doing them in my own kitchen. I didn't realize that there were people, looking at this from all over the world. And in 2018, I was part of the Chef's Manifesto launch, which happened in Stockholm. Since then, I have been working with the UN SDG2 Advocacy Hub to reduce waste, to work on, championing ingredients like millets, using indigenous ingredients, increasing biodiversity in kitchens. Now, I'm sure you'll be thinking, why? And the reason is that I realized that, a chef is always going to be that person in the kitchen who's going to be busy putting out orders, creating menus, talking to guests, looking at his or her business. But there was a time where I stepped away a bit from the kitchen, and I said that, as a chef, we have a bigger role to play. We have an important role to play, and that role is of us being in between the farmer and the consumer. So if there's something that I put on my plate today or on social media, there will be people who'd be interested to know more about it. And that's exactly what happened with millets. And I realized that we've got, like I said, bigger roles to play as chefs. And we started talking about that on the platform. We started looking inwards and correcting things that were wrong in our kitchen, like reducing waste, coming up with new dishes with, like complete scrap. Like, for example, potato skins, you can come up with like a really quick and easy crisp or a starter. I met another chef in Ireland, Connor Spacey. I work with him a lot. He's in Dublin. And he and me were cooking together, and he showed me this. And he was like, you know what? I've taken out the sweet potato, scooped the sweet potato. I'm going to dry up the skins. I'm going to make a nice puree of the sweet potato and fill it up in the skins. And you can just pick it up, and it's a full plate. Like, you don't need a plate. You can just eat the entire thing. And so that's what the Chef's Manifesto is all about. It's about connecting with people from different parts of the world, different chefs who are doing different things, exchanging ideas, because it's not me, if I'm doing millets, it's not like you can't do millets. It's collectively, what can we do to change things in the food systems which haven't been looked at all. And I know we all of us can be change makers in our own way. So, I've been working with the Chef's Manifesto for so many years now, and very happy to be doing the things that I do and getting more chefs into the network.
Yeah, it's such an amazing initiative, and it's fascinating to hear how involved you've been. And I know now the millets thing is a big campaign.
The International Year of the Millet. That was last year, yes, 2023. Yeah. But even now, like every Monday, I have a millet recipe going up, because, there was a time where I was like, okay, 2023 is over. Like, why am I posting millet recipes? And that's when I realized that that's just the beginning. We have to get more people to eat with more diversity, because honestly, we do have a food crisis coming on our heads. So we have to diversify our palates and be able to work with ingredients which are lesser known, which use less water, which are, like millets, or even different crops and different vegetables, which, people wouldn't select. They would be like, okay, why don't I just have a cauliflower, but let the Brussels sprouts be? It's important to have a good mix of everything so that the ecosystem can grow, not just one thing in abundance, like with avocados, for example. So yeah, I can talk about this for the entire day, but yeah, I'm going to cut it short now.
Oh, that's okay. So in that spirit, what would you say is one of the most actionable goals that people can do today in their own life, would you say?
I'll talk about goal 2 from the SDGs. For me, that's zero hunger. I think each of us have, our own responsibilities, and at least as chefs and people in the food service industries, I think we can give our teams and in terms of our staff a good meal, a good nutritious meal. I think that's important. And as chefs, I think that's really important to look at the nutritional value of dishes that you're putting out to guests. We have to stop putting so much sugar. We have to stop putting so much oil. I recently read a recipe which had mango chutney, lime cordial, and 2 kgs of sugar in it. And I was like, what are you making? I mean, you're literally giving a customer so much sugar, and that poor customer has no idea. So I think as chefs, it's our responsibility to make sure food is delicious, 100%, but also nutritious.
Absolutely. So could you tell me what's one of your proudest moments or best achievements from your time working with the Chef's Manifesto?
So I would say 2. One would be at the UN headquarters in New York, where I was on a panel with the Director General and the head of the FAO. I was really nervous, and they were just sitting right next to me and having like a normal chat. And I was like, this is supposed to be a little more high pressure, but I was just having a great conversation with them, which turned into a panel discussion, which the audiences loved. So I was really happy that I was able to, deliver at that moment. And the second would be at the Global Citizen Festival, where we cooked for 2,000 people, and I cooked a millet salad in New York. Amazing. So yeah, one was all the talking and one was actually the cooking. So I'm happy with both.
Nice. They do sound like moments where you think, how did I get here?
Yeah, and when you finish, you just feel so good. And before that, you're so stressed. You're like, how am I even going to get this done? But it's such a great feeling when people get to eat your food, which they're actually doubtful about or they've never tasted before, and they actually like it. For me, that's one of the greatest awards.
Yeah, that look in people's eyes when they realize this is great.
Yeah.
That's the best thing as a chef, I think.
Absolutely. Nothing better.
So do you think there's a good outlook for achieving the global goals?
So I think each of us have that responsibility, and it's about how we integrate that into our lifestyles and our lives. It has to happen seamlessly because honestly, and I'll give you an example. There was this lady who asked me, we were on a panel discussion, and she said, you know what, in Africa, there's so much millet, but no one's eating it. And then I turned around and I told her, I said, yes, they're not eating it because they are, forced to eat millet porridge, which looks like gruel and it just doesn't look appetizing. So as chefs, that's where our role comes in, to take ingredients, actually make it look beautiful, make it look exciting. You want, when you see it, you want to eat it. So that's where, that's our role. So I feel you have to seamlessly be able to get people to understand that they have a responsibility towards the global goals, and we all do in our own different ways. It's about how you would contribute to that and how you would make a difference. And for the Chefs Network, of course, we have the Chef's Manifesto. We've also got a global campaign on beans where we're trying to increase bean consumption by 2030. And overall, I think it's not about being vegetarian or non-vegetarian. It's about having a balanced diet and being a little more conscious in your approach. It could be in your kitchens, in your homes, and in your lives.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Finally, you did mention briefly earlier about your working on your next book.
Yes.
Can you tell us anything yet, or is there anything else exciting coming up for you?
Okay, so exciting stuff. I'm hoping that I finish my book by the end of this year. Books always take long with chefs. Even the Parsi Kitchen, I thought I would write it in 2 years. It took me 5 years. That's because chefs don't sit still. We're always on the go. We're always busy. And then my editor tells me, she's like, just take out 1 hour at night. And at night means like I am a log. I can't even move. I mean, how do you expect me to think and type anything? So it can only really happen when you take some time off. And I think that's important. But I am I've already completed 50% of my book, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. But it does align very closely to the Chef's Manifesto. So that's just a hint for you guys. It's going to have some great recipes in it, and we're just, in the process of shooting the recipes. So that's happening. And I'm hoping to be back in London with something exciting. So fingers crossed.
Well, we would love that, definitely.
Yes. See you soon.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Beyond Food and Wine, a Le Cordon Bleu podcast. Keep up to date with all our news and episodes by following us on social media or by signing up to our newsletter. Links are included in the episode notes. Until next time, a bientôt!